We're here at the Oral Leisure Centre in Letterkenny for the separation of voting papers for the European election and, of course, I suppose more importantly, the local council elections here in Donegal. It's been a hive of activity right through the morning. I'm joined here by the editor of the Tribune, John McAteer, always good at analysing what's been happening and what, more importantly, might happen once we get into the nitty-gritty of the voting tomorrow, John. Let's start with the Letterkenny-Milford area. 22 candidates for 10 seats and some very interesting speculation in terms of who's going to get the seats, John, and I suppose more importantly, who might not retain seats.
Very interesting. The final boxes are being tallied here. There's two boxes that we have to come up with. Liam Blaney on 9.2, Kieran Brogan 9.1, and John O'Donnell, the new independent candidate, on 8.9. Those are the top three. And then the third Fianna Fáil candidate who's going to take a seat is James McAteer from Glenswilly, followed by Ian McGarvey, independent, Jerry McMonigal of Sinn Féin, Daisy Shields, very much in the frame, local solicitor here in Letterkenny, had a campaign very much under the radar. Mick Quinn is in there as well. Those are the top 7 or 8. After that, it's going to be very, very hard to call it. Jimmy Kavanagh is slightly ahead of Noel McBride, the outgoing councillor, who is under quite a bit of pressure. He's on about 1,000 votes, probably down about 500 on the last time, and he's going to struggle. He'll be very, very lucky to retain that seat, and it will depend on a very big transfer from Grace Boyle, who'll be eliminated on about the 4th or 5th count.
Fine Gael didn't manage their vote too well the last occasion we were here 5 years ago, John. If my memory serves me right, they had 4 candidates in the field. They ended up getting 1 seat. They weren't too happy about that. The way things are shaping up here at the moment, they'll be very happy to get 1 seat.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't totally rule out the possibility of a second seat, because there's a large group of votes that's going to be transferred from Letterkenny candidates. There could be about 4,000 votes around that elimination process on the first 4 to 5 counts. So that's going to be all to play for. Donald Cullen is going to come in there potentially with a chance of taking a final seat. So is Pascal Blake. Charlie McClafferty and a few people like that are also not out of the frame, but it depends very, very much on transfers. It's effectively out of the hands of the Fine Gael party, given that they were on around 4,000 the last time. They're probably down to about 2,500. So there's a big drop there. Fianna Fáil could take a much bigger hit and still keep their 3 seats. They took 7,850 the last time. They're going to be somewhere under 5,000 this time. So there's a very significant hit. But their 3 top candidates, there's been a very good transfer arrangement there for the first time ever within the Fianna Fáil party. And that Blaney and Brogan managed to give votes to James McAteer, who would be pretty isolated up in the Glenswilly area. He'd be a bit hampered because his polling station would have about 900 votes and 700 turned out on election day. Yeah. So for him to get up there to over 1,200 votes, the strategy from his director, Niall Doherty, was to get around 1,000. So far, about 18,000 people have turned out. So it's probably marginally down on the last time, but only very marginally. Yeah.
John O'Donnell, of course, the O'Donnell dynasty, his father Eddie many years ago, a very successful and high-profile councillor. We have to say he's done a magnificent job here with the vote that he's got himself.
Absolutely incredible job there. You know, he's going to be up around 1,600 votes when the final tallies are coming in. Our own opinion poll in the Tirconaill Tribune, just 2 weeks out from polling day, would have put him up there. In fact, might have put him a wee bit higher than he actually is. But those would have been the top 3, Blaney, Brogan and John O'Donnell. Now, we would have had Ian McGarvey in there and James Pat. We would have had Mick Quinn and Jerry McMonigal. There's a slight change of emphasis as to where the votes went, within Sinn Féin particularly. Yeah. But then we would have had Noel McBride just a little bit ahead, maybe by 1.5 percentage points. It's absolutely nothing in a poll. But Jimmy Kavanagh is now eased out in front of Noel, but Kavanagh could benefit strategically from the Letterkenny eliminations to a much greater extent than Noel might.
Sure. And Desi Shields, as you said, another surprise package, came into it late. Did well at the last general election, run as an independent, but few expected him to really do well this time.
He has taken roughly half of his general election vote here. He came into the election, he was slightly under the radar when we did our poll, which is why he's on he's up just over 5 percentage points. We had him somewhat lower than that, but he has obviously conducted a campaign literally beneath the radar. Very few people would have given him more than 500. In fact, I would have said 5 to 550 would have been a max for him.
Yeah. Let's just move on to Inishowen. Sinn Féin are hoping to take 3 seats. They're going to take 2 for certain, but they're hoping that Kieran McLaughlin's going to slip in there. Likewise, Fianna Fáil are certain of 1, hoping to take 3 as well. Martin McDermott's performance down there has been immense.
Just been talking to Martin McDermott there, and he's going to be up close to 2,000 votes. A community activist, highly involved and engaged in the campaign to save the radio station and all that goes with it. Around his own native Glengad area, up and around that area. He's 38 years of age, but he has a huge amount of experience as a community activist. So that's a huge achievement for him. Rena Donaghy is going to be quite safe there. Fianna Fáil is going to take 3 seats. They're going to gain a seat there. There's 2 extra seats in Inishowen. As you said there, Fine Gael is probably on the cusp of losing a seat. Martin Farren of Labour looks secure enough on just over 1,000 votes. Not absolutely guaranteed, but you know he's in there. Fine Gael battling. Mickey Doherty, Black Mickey, is in serious bother because he's surrounded by strong candidates and they've all polled very strongly, so they've eaten into his heartland.
And Nicholas Crossan's a shoe-in as well there.
Nicholas Crossan is a shoe-in, and I'm much surprised about that because Nicholas has been a community activist in Buncrana for well over 30 years, and I suppose it's a due recognition to a lifetime dedicated to politics and to the community and to being an independent.
So we could see 3 Sinn Féin, we could see 3 Fianna Fáil, Nicholas Crossan independent, 1 Labour, and Fine Gael trying to get that. Bernard McGuinness might be the man to get that seat.
Bernard McGuinness would look secure enough to me. John Ryan is probably going to be in a battle for that final seat. In fact, Kieran McLaughlin of Sinn Féin and John Ryan to me are the 2 people. I think, you know, at this point that from talking to people on the floor of the hall, they would favour John Ryan to edge out Kieran McLaughlin just because of a stronger preference transfers.
John, the Glenties area, 2 Sinn Féin, 2 Fianna Fáil, 1 Fine Gael, and a battle for the last seats, what I'm being told.
Battle for the last seat. The smart money there would be on Sinn Féin taking 2 seats. There's an extra seat there, you see. So effectively nobody would be losing out. Seamus O'Donnell is probably going to be pretty secure. The outgoing councillors all look pretty secure there. You have...
Will Enda Bonner make it back?
Enda Bonner's in a strong position, I think. It's very early days yet because we're only getting a very small sample. We're just looking at the dairy bag boxes down there, but we're getting just a small sample. It's much too early yet.
And Donegal Town, the standout there, Tom Cunningham and Niamh Kennedy, two more independents really polling well.
One of them is likely to take a seat. So you're going to have X number of new independents. There's a potential for 2 in Milford. You have 1 in Buncrana and 1 in Donegal Town. You already have 5 independents in Milford, so you could have 9.
Yeah. And finally, just on the European scene, Pat the Cope not doing as well here in Donegal as he would have hoped, so that wouldn't augur too well for him outside the county.
Big issues first of all this morning up and in Inishowen, where he was being literally outpolled everywhere by the Sinn Féin man Matt Carthy. He has picked up somewhat, but Carthy has continued to poll very strongly. The reality is that on a poll similar to the last time, Pat the Cope would need to leave Donegal with about 28,000 votes to have a prayer of retaining that seat. Doesn't look good for him at this point.
Would you say the government parties are getting a message from the electorate? We don't like what you've done, we don't like what you're doing, and if you don't improve things, we're going to really make you suffer in the general election in a couple of years' time?
Oh, absolutely. Labour Party is going to be decimated today. They could lose up to 80 seats. Fine Gael could lose as many as 90 seats. And I think quietly over the next couple of weeks, they'll be into a sort of a last year of the current government mode with a slightly changed strategy, less austerity and more promises, and you know what more promises can deliver.